Greetings, my friend, and welcome to another video here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel dedicated towards helping the whole world get stronger with the power of calisthenics training. I'm Matt Schifferly. And today's topic, we are discussing calf training, one of my favorite little areas to work, a supplemental approach to be sure, because we should be developing a decent level of calf strength and size with all lower body squat chain movements, but we're going to be addressing ways to specifically target them with more emphasis if that's an area you want to, well, emphasize. And the approach most people will take is take some sort of a step or something like that, kind of lean your weight onto something, and basically just do these deep, maybe slow, real hard stretching calf raises until you feel like the muscle's about to rip off from the bone. Granted, it's a very satisfying way to really get a good burn in your calves, but it's certainly not the approach that I would advocate and recommend if you want to really develop your lower legs. So first and foremost, like any other area we're trying to develop, we want to make sure that we have a good degree of muscular engagement, that coveted mind-muscle connection. And for a lot of people, they have a fairly poor mind-muscle connection with the calves, which is why they struggle to build them up with any type of training. So the first place we want to start is, can you just stand normal and really flex the mother-living hell out of your calf muscles at will? Not coming up on the balls of your feet, not doing any sort of special things. Just can you stand and flex them really hard? Of course, sometimes it's harder to engage a muscle group when it's under load, and that's what happens to our calves when we're standing. So it might be a little easier if you're seated, and then you can practice just flexing on the regular, when you're driving, when you're seated in a chair or something, and it should definitely be very obvious. Sometimes I'll ask people, do you feel your calves working? Are you sure you're contracting a muscle? And they'd be like, I suppose, I guess they're contracting. No, if you're really contracting it with any degree of force, it should be, oh yeah, they are definitely on. I really feel them contracting hard, and you can do that at will. And if that's not the case, daily practice is now a must. The next thing to pay attention to is the setup for the exercise. Because keep in mind, this is a squat chain movement, so we want to involve the entire lower body for this, placing an emphasis on the calves, not trying to isolate. And so we can do this with either on a step or on the floor, which is where I usually recommend people start off with. So start with tensing up your quadriceps, which locks your knees back a little bit. And then engage your glutes rather. This is very important because if my hips are back here, my weight keeps wanting to go back onto my heels. And we want instead our weight more onto the balls of your feet. So engage with some good hip extension and you'll feel your weight just kind of rock slightly forward. And now I'm all on the balls of my feet. My heels are ever so slightly touching the floor. They're kissing the floor, if you will. So everything is turned on, everything is contracted, and that ensures a very strict technique, because any type of this little movement, even a millimeter of it, is going to rob a lot of emphasis and quality tension from your calves. So quads are on, glutes are on, leaning forward, and I, again, recommend start on the ground, no support, and now you're using your calves not just for the movement of the raise, but also for the stability, which is also incredibly important for the muscles to engage in. Being mindful that you don't want your feet turning out like this. That's the path of least resistance for your muscles. You want to make sure that you're emphasizing the weight on the big toes when you're doing your calf raises. Nice, smooth control, letting your heels kiss the floor, but not letting your weight rock backwards. The next type of progression, naturally, is to use some sort of a step. Although if you're using some sort of support, be very mindful of how much weight you're putting into your arms. You want as little as possible, because you want as much weight as you can on the balls of your feet. So once again, we have our quads engaged, our glutes engaged, and very light fingertip touch, constant tension in the calf muscles. Try not to let them just relax and release, because even if you're getting that deeper range of motion, it doesn't do you any good if there's no tension in the muscle. From there, your natural progression is single leg. And for this, I always recommend crossing the other foot right above the ankle. This ensures that the leg's not kind of just moving around and changing around your weight distribution, which can kind of throw things off for consistency in the effectiveness. Well, once again, quads, glutes are engaged, very smooth and big motion, making sure that you have equal amounts of volume, of course, repetitions on each side. Calf raises are also a very common calisthenic to load with external weight, but for that I usually recommend either a weight vest or holding onto a single dumbbell while doing the single leg variation. Otherwise, you have a lot of weight you've got to be using for the two-legged variation, which can be harder to load up without a lot of external equipment like Smith machines or calf machines and stuff. When you're doing it on a single leg, it's a lot easier to heavily load up the muscles with just 20 or 30 pounds. And lastly, there's a lot of calf programs out there that have you working your feet at all these different widths and different angles and all these. Don't worry about that stuff. It's usually just a way to dilute your programming intensity. It eats up a lot of time and usually isn't worth it. Just stay focused on keeping your feet fairly close together. If you're doing two-legged variations, toes pointing forwards, or single leg variations, again, toes pointing forwards, and just get reps until your muscles are really firmly burned out. I like the single leg variation because you can get like 20-30 reps, 20-30 reps, 20-30 reps, and just keep bouncing back and forth. Volume is not a bad thing here. Usually the calves respond fairly well to a good degree of volume, and they may get fairly sore the first time you work them if they're not used to being worked. But for the most part, this is something you can practice almost daily. So don't feel like it's got to be just on leg day or once or twice a week. Give it a try 3, 4, 5 times a week, even if it's just the floor calf raises. That can really add up over time. Make sure you like, subscribe, these things. I come out with these weekly videos on tutorials for calisthenics every single, week. And I put a micro workout as well as other resources to learn more about building muscle with calisthenics down below in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Be fit and live free.